Welcome friends, this video is going to be a bit of a project. We're going to learn many different practical skills. So importing CSV comma separated files, joining them in a common table expression by a field, and then selecting the records from the common table expression. So practical skills, let's take a look here. So where do we begin? Well, I've placed two CSV files on the lesson resources. One of them should be called salespeople and the other one should be called sales amounts. And they end in CSV, and we're going to import them first. But we need to import them into tables that we have created, okay? So let's create the tables, and then we'll import the records from the CSV files into the tables as follows. On the left side here, click on Tables. I'm using the MyDBase database, not AdventureWorks. Right-click on Tables, and then click Table. Obviously, you could also do this with a script. And we're going to give these things the following. So inside the sales amounts table, I'm going to have these fields. I'm going to put salesperson ID, integer as the data type, and then not null. I'm going to have the amount field. That's going to be money basically. And again, also make it not null. That actually, from our purposes, doesn't matter too much. And lastly, I'm going to have a date as an example. And you're going to make that the date data type. And again, not null. So I'm going to leave this here for a second. And this is going to be called sales amounts. So I'm going to save it as that. So on the toolbar up top, click, or you can do Control+S on your keyboard if you like. And I'm going to save this as sales amounts. And remember, the database context here is MyDBase, not AdventureWorks. That's where I'm saving it. Sales amounts. All right, give that a nice save. We've got the first table structure saved. Good. Close it. And repeat this process. So right-click on tables, go over to table again, and then Object Explorer. This is stuff we've done before. And this time I'm going to stick in these fields here. Name. I'm going to make it nvarchar. You can make it say 100. Remember, nvarchar is the good one because, not the good one, remember it's the more powerful one, more flexible one, so to speak, because you can store a variety of characters. All right, not null, that's fine. And then let's also add salesperson ID. So the only thing in this table will be the name of the person and salesperson ID. Okay, I hope you've got that. And at the next stage here, make that again an integer, whole number data type. Disable allow nulls. Okay, and I'm going to save this file structure here as follows. I'm going to call this sales and then people. So you've got two tables, sales amounts and sales people, and we're going to merge them with an inner join after we import them. So let me click OK here. Make sure you've got this saved. So on the left side, let me just refresh. Right-click on tables, refresh. And you should have, let me bring this up in detail down here. Where is that? I'm going to expand that. So you should have sales amounts with those fields inside. If you have to pause the video and make sure you've got that going on. And also sales people with the columns as shown down below. So if you need to, please pause and make sure you've got that, okay? Now, if you need to drop two objects at the same time as a small side note, you can do that. Just type drop table, name of first table, comma, name of second table. You can drop two tables at the same time if you, for example, make mistakes, you want to get rid of them, and so on. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to use them, so I'm just going to comment that out. But I want to point that out as possible to do. Now, we've got these two table structures. The CSV files you should download to your computer and save them in an easily to access folder. That's very important because if the folder might be difficult to access, you could generate all kinds of little strange errors. So let's do that bit next. I'm going to type this. Remember, I've got the MyDBase database context with the two table structures. I'm going to type bulk insert. And how do I know that I should type any of this stuff? Well, it's a lot of experimentation. That's all. Okay, so bulk insert, and I'm going to say salespeople, so name of table. And then you specify the next bit, which might take this form, from. And then between single quotes, you put the path of the file, where the file is located, including the file name with the extension on it. So I'm going to say C:, and then data in my particular case, and I'm going to say here salespeople.csv as shown here. So bulk insert, name of table, and then from, meaning the location, file name, path with extension on it. And then you specify the next block, which is going to be a width. And then you specify additional parameters and their values to be sure the import works correctly, okay? So to do that, take a look. Opening and closing parentheses. Remember, usually parentheses, curly braces, single quotes, double quotes, in programming languages, those things usually come as pairs, okay? At least in the ones I've used mostly. So one opens, one closes. I'm going to say here this, first row equals 2. Now I'm putting that because the data begins on row 2, not row 1 as an example, okay? Put a comma, then you put the next parameter in its value. So I'm going to say here field terminator, set that equal to the following, put a comma. That simply means the fields, the columns are separated by commas inside the file, that's all. And then I'm going to put the last parameter in its value, row terminator, and just put a slash with an N, meaning new line, like that. Okay, and make sure that up above you put a comma outside. So here be very careful with the commas, right? One is enclosed within single quotes, and the other one is just a comma that separates the fields or the parameters as given here, okay? One is red and one is gray if you look carefully. All right, I'm going to give this a go here. So bulk insert, let's see what happens. Hit execute. And let's see. It says for rows affected. You want to see something like that? That's good. Let's take a look inside. So I'm going to say select star from salespeople. And again, in your case, if this doesn't show up, do Control-Shift-R and refresh everything, okay? Hit execute. Let's see. So you've got the name here. John, Tom, Shira, and Marcus. I made this up, so I know what the names are. I've got their salesperson IDs. That's good. All right, now we're going to repeat this for the next file. So take a look here. I'm going to take this and just basically copy it. That's all. I'm going to do Control-C and then Control-V down below, as shown here. And then we just change the appropriate values. So instead of salespeople, this time we'll do sales amounts, like that. So you're inserting into sales amounts this time. Let me space this out a little bit. And the file is called sales amounts also. .csv for comma separated values. The settings down below, first row is the same, field terminator is the same, comma, row terminator is the same, /n, new line. All right, I'm going to give this a shot and see what happens. So execute. And it looks as though that has worked well. 15 rows affected, correct. So I'm going to again just double check here by doing a select on it. So select star from sales amounts. Let's see, run that baby. Sometimes getting the little thing to appear that shows you where you should pull is tricky. All right, so you've got salesperson ID, and you see that, for example, 1/6/57 on that date. Salesperson ID 1/175 on the second, and so on. Well, obviously, salesperson ID is a common field between the two tables. All right, so we can join the tables by that field. Okay, I hope you got that. So you've got the tables imported from CSV into SQL Server using a bulk insert like this one. We confirm that worked. We scroll down. We do another bulk insert on the second set of data. We confirm that data is available to select. And now, I also want to point out how you control the collapsing of the code. You have to look very carefully because if you place your cursor on the first minus, you see it highlights everything in the background with like a grayish color. So that means if I collapse what I have there now, everything gets collapsed. So one more time, you look very carefully. It's grayish in the background. If you click the little plus, all of the code from top to bottom gets collapsed. Okay? So that's one kind of collapsing. Now look very carefully again. Place your cursor not on the minus, but like somewhere in the middle of that segment, and you should see only that block of code get highlighted. So from the beginning of bulk insert to its closing parentheses, only that gets highlighted if you look carefully. So you can click there, double click, and it will collapse just that one block for you, you see? And then you can double click in the middle of the next one, not on the minus itself, for example, and it will collapse just that block for you. So this is how you can control the collapsing of the blocks completely. So you should have both of the bulk inserts collapsed. All right, next stage here, I'm going to say the following: with join CTE, and I'm going to type name, comma, and sales amount, like that. So I'm creating the comma table expression. I'm calling it join CTE because that will be its purpose, to join the tables. And the way I'm imagining it is perhaps you have these two tables, right? And you're updating them, and you're like pretty regularly, for example, importing them into SQL Server, and then you're joining them frequently and so on. And obviously once you have the join, then you could operate on a joined version of the tables, in many different ways. All right, as parentheses as usual to define the body of this. And now as define the body, so I'm going to type, for example, select name, comma, and then some amount as total sales. So this is nothing new at this point. You have seen this kind of code before. And the only difference is I'm going to do a join, inner join to be more specific inside the CTE. And now let's do the from. So I will say from, and then I will say as follows here. So sales people as S, I'm aliasing it, and then inner join sales amounts as S, or rather as A, meaning amounts. That's why I'm using little a. And remember, the S over here will stand for sales people, for S, from sales, okay? All right, so then I'll do the actual on. So I'm going to say on, and then I'm going to say s.salesperson ID. That actually shows up. Remember, salesperson ID is a field in the salespeople table because I designed it that way. Equals, and you will say a.salesperson ID. Again, in the amounts table, in the sales amounts table, there's a field named salesperson ID. That's why I can write that line. That'll be the inner join for us. And lastly, we've got a group. So I'll say group by, for example, name. Now let's take a look at what this message is saying. Take a look here. It says join CTE is not a recognized table, hence option. Well, for our purposes, it's not meant to be that at all. So let's see. Highlight that code, give it an execution, and see what the message is. Incorrect syntax. So, what might be causing this? Right before it, just put a go for now. Take a look. And that gets rid of the underlining. Okay, I hope you've got that. And now, just to make use of this CTE perhaps one time, all I will do is say something simple like say, select star from join CTE. And let's see whether this will work. So just highlight everything, including the CTE. Give it an execution. And let's look down below. You've got name and the sales amount. Now the sales amount, you may want to, for example, alias in some more meaningful way, as for example, total sales amount or something like that. And that's all of the code here. So again, it's a lot. It's a big, long project. So I'm just going to go from the top one more time for you. Remember, the big idea is import CSV file, join them in a common table expression, select records. So remember, this is the bulk insert. For the salespeople, remember, there already has to be a table structure in place for this to work, or you might generate all kinds of strange errors. And I think sometimes some of the errors are very mysterious in SQL Server. All right, next stage, so that's for one of them. You do the bulk insert for the next one for sales amounts, just as shown here. Okay, and then remember here, especially if you get some kind of error underlining with the join CTE, or it gives you something, just put a go right before it. All right, so remember, if I remove the go, it'll get underlined red. Another thing that you can try sometimes is you put a semicolon right there, and that might also fix it, you see? So I've shown you two different ways in which you can approach that problem. Put a semicolon, that's interesting. Basically, either the go or as you can see, the semicolon are ensuring that things are properly separated. If not, you might get little errors of various kinds. All right, and then lastly, there's the CTE together with the simple select star from join CTE. If I can, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this 100%, even though that's very small. And I'm going to try to put all of it on the screen, but even then it might be a little bit hard. Let me see here, pull this down as much as I can. Right, just the code from top to bottom takes this form. And I'm going to leave it here. So thank you so much, friends, and I'll see you in the next one.